So if Allah gives speech that you then recite, and your recitation is created, but Allah's speech is uncreated, then the words, because they are identical, are mirror images of one another. And that means that Allah's attribute of speech is identical to your speech. And that means that Allah is like something in his creation, which contradicts the Quran. If Allah is not like anything in his creation, right, that also includes all of his attributes. If you're saying that your recitation of the Quran intercedes for you on the Day of Judgment,
because of the action,
and it is the action that is speaking for you, then that means your recitation of the Quran is a mirror image of Allah's speech. In other words,
where do you get that
your
implication?
Created
That's
speech is a mirror image of Allah's divine speech.
Right. I don't understand what's wrong with that. You're superimposing.
Is Allah like anything in his creation?
You're superimposing.
Answer that. I'm going to explain to you why it's wrong.
No.
Is Allah like anything in his creation?
Here's the thing you gotta understand. You're superimposing the fact that if I repeat God's words, whatever I'm saying is divine.
No, I didn't say that.
Therefore,
no, I actually said it was created.
Therefore, because
I did not say that.
is nothing like His creation.
I did not say that.
The fact that the recitation is divine, therefore it contradicts
I did not
the fact
say that.
God is nothing
I
like.
did not
Isn't
say
that.
that.
Your point?
No, you see, again, you haven't listened, so I'll repeat my point again.
I did listen, and I think
so try to listen. Try to listen to my point. So the Quran says that Allah is not like anything that He has created. So He's not like anything that He's created. But you're saying that your recitation of the Quran is created,
right,
and it is that action that will intercede for you on the Day of Judgment.
Right.
But that recitation, for it to be a recitation of the Quran, of Allah's speech, means that it must be a mirror image of his speech.
Right.
Going back to our living example, if I say your jumper is green and you repeat your jumper is green, you have spoke, I have spoke, my speech is an attribute of me, your speech is an attribute of you, but the words your jumper is green are exactly the same. Correct, thank you. So that means that Allah's speech is like something that Allah created.
So what you're implying
yes, okay.
is that
yes, okay.
When someone repeats the words of God, right, it's something similar to or is the same as the attribute of God.
It is a mirror
That's
image of
saying.
Allah's words.
So you're saying because God is nothing like what's created.
Well, Allah says that, not me.
You can't have that. You can't have someone be able to say things that are the attributes of God, is what you're implying.
So are you saying that Allah was wrong when he said that he's not like anything in his creation?
I'm trying to understand what you're trying to say.
I think most people who are watching this are going to understand. So my point to you is, I'll state it again, is that Allah says in his Quran, he is not like anything that he has created.
Right.
That includes his attributes, right? But if the recitation of Quran is created, and it's that recitation that speaks for you on the Day of Judgment, and the recitation, for it to be called Quran, it must reflect the words of Allah. So where Allah says Bismillah Rahmanir Rahim, and you say Bismillah Rahmanir Rahim, and forgive my Arabic, I'm not an Arabic speaker.
I understand. So
your attribute of speech reflects in mirror image Allah's attribute of speech.
Do you know?
Because the words Bismillah Rahmanir Rahim have been spoken by you, which are created, and Allah, which are uncreated.
All right, so listen up, Bob. You gotta stay with me here.
Go on.
The equivalent of what you're saying is that the fact that mercy, for example, is an attribute of God, and that we're merciful to each other, that is similar to an attribute of God. Therefore, there is something in creation that is similar to Him, and contradicts the fact that there is nothing like Him.
So
that's the equivalent of what you're saying. Is that true?
I mean, it is a problem for Islam. Yes.
You see,
it is a problem for Islam.
So now you gotta understand is that the mercy of God is different to our mercy. It's not like when you take the attributes such as the speech of God, simply repeating or doing that thing doesn't mean that you're like God. That doesn't make any sense.
So you haven't actually addressed my point. The whole mercy thing does create another problem, and it creates exactly the same problem. Because if you're saying that Allah is not like anything in his creation, right, but Allah has mercy and you have mercy, then you have no point of reference to identify what mercy is to Allah.
Right.
Because Allah is not like anything in His creation.
So His mercy
but the problem with the speech thing, and here's the problem with the speech thing that you I know you've recognized it because I saw you recognize it, is that if I say your jumper is green and you say your jumper is green, we have two attributes of speech, each belonging to two different beings. But the words your jumper is green are identical. So if Allah gives speech that you then recite, and your recitation is created, but Allah's speech is uncreated, then the words, because they are identical, are mirror images of one another. And that means that Allah's attribute of speech is identical to your speech. And that means that Allah is like something in His creation, which contradicts the Quran. So don't refute the argument. Don't flabbergast, don't equivocate, don't use a different example. Deal with my argument.
You're having a hard time understanding the
really
fact
not.
that when we repeat the words of God,
yes,
we're not creating something that is similar or is the same as God. What you have to do is you have
You're
to
not creating anything. Allah's creating
it. When the Quran,
it.
for example, gives a challenge to bring a verse like it, just because you repeat the Quran as it is, it doesn't mean you've brought a verse like it. That's what
I didn't say that. No, I didn't say that.
You have to create something that's similar to Him in order
to
contradict the point that God is nothing like His creation.
So I didn't actually say that.
And you got to understand, in Islam, there's a difference of opinion that your recitation of the Quran, when it comes out as is the production of speech of God, that could be uncreated. And in that sense, your whole argument falls.
No, it doesn't.
But even if we don't say that, your argument still falls because of the fact that we're simply repeating the words of God. We're not creating something of our own will that is similar to God.
Let me reply to that. Let me reply to that. The first thing, I need to teach you your own deen. Because yes, you do. No. Because you said we create speech. You said we create speech. Islamic Aqidah is that Allah creates your speech. You don't create anything. You don't create anything. No. Allah creates every moment of time. He creates every action. Right, so Allah creates your speech. No, I'm going to finish my point. The argument that I've made, the argument that you are not addressing, and the fact that I keep having to repeat it shows that you're not addressing it, is that because I'm not saying that your speech is of similar eloquence to Allah's speech, because that is what the point of the Quran that you referenced in your reply, and I never made any mention of that whatsoever. What I said was, because remember it's about the Quran's intercession on the Day of Judgment, you said that the Quran's intercession on the Day of Judgment is not actually the Quran, it's the action of reciting the Quran. And I said, fine, let's work with that. If the action of the Quran is what intercedes for you, then that means Allah has created something that is identical to Allah's own speech. If I say, let me finish. No, you don't get to interrupt. You don't get to interrupt. If I say that your jumper is green and you say your jumper is green, even though my attribute of speech is mine and your attribute of speech is yours, the words your jumper is green are identical. And if Allah creates words that are identical to His words, then He has created something identical to something uncreated. And as it is identical to something uncreated, it breaks the Islamic concept. It contradicts what the Quran says when it says Allah is not like anything He has created, because He creates your speech. And if He creates your speech and your speech is identical to His words, then He has created something identical to His eternal speech.
So,
do you follow that logic?
Yeah, just listen up. As I understand it, you're saying my recitation of the Quran
is created, yes.
And so God has created something similar to His uncreated attribute of the Quran.
What I'm saying is there are words in the Quran, and there are words that Allah creates when you recite the Quran.
Yeah.
Right? The words of the Quran, the kalam of Allah, is uncreated.
Okay.
Your recitation is created. So Allah is creating things in creation that are one-to-one symmetry with His uncreated speech. And I'll prove it to you again. Just repeat my words. Your jumper is green.
We've gone through that 3 times. I've already.
So address the analogy.
To be honest, I've already addressed your.
Address
argument,
the
and you
analogy.
keep repeating it.
So address the analogy.
What about the? Can you
address the analogy? If I say your jumper is green, and you say your jumper is green, my speech is an attribute of me. Your speech is an attribute of you. But the words "your jumper is green" are identical words.
But when I say your jumper is green,
yes.
It's not an attribute of you.
Agreed. And that breaks the radical transcendence that the Quran asserts. The Quran asserts a radical transcendence. It says Allah is not like anything He has created. That includes all of His attributes, including His speech. And yet He creates your recitation, which has a one-to-one symmetry, a mirror image, a perfect replication of the words of Allah.
Okay.
Your silence is appropriate.